Republicans. Everybody loved Lenny. When he died, it was a bad day for New York, I'll tell you. He was a great guy, but he lived to 103, 104 because he just loved his business. He was designing a new building at 103, and that was the end of it. He didn't quite get the design finished. But you had 3.6 million people aged 110, substantially older than good old Lenny. From 110 to 119, you have 3.6. These are the people on the rolls. Now we're looking to see whether or not they've been paid, because if they've been paid, then you're just using those numbers to take out the money, all the money that's paid to those people. 3.47 million people from the age of 120 to 129. 3.9 million people age 130 to 139. 3.5 million people age 140 years old to 149 years old. I think this is the case for Pam. I think I might give you this, Pam, just you can have it. In fact, I will. 1.3 million from age 150. There's 1.3 million people they're saying are alive and receiving Social Security. Now, that's the only thing we're checking. Are they receiving it? Because if they're receiving it, that makes it much worse. If they're not receiving it, that just makes it incompetent. They shouldn't be on the rolls. And the only thing good about this is that when we take all these people off the rolls, and we have tremendous fraud underneath, people that are 80 and 60 and 50 and everything else, but this is really incredible. 1.3 million from 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people are on the rolls of Social Security over the age of 160 years old, including 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229. So we have, think of that, we have 1,039 people who are 220 years old to 229. We have one person at 240 years old, and here's the beauty of them all. We have one person at 360, which is strange because the country is 250. So it's been there 110 years older than the country. Here, Pam, you better take a look at this. That's much better for you than for me. Now the question is, are they getting paid? Because somebody maybe is getting paid. Yeah, I have a feeling you were. I said, what a convenient thing. This is so nice. We created this department, DOJ, and the kind of numbers are incredible. It could be $500 billion, but it could be $1 trillion. It could be even $1.5 trillion. We're going to find out. I mean, I'm actually going with Elon, and Elon is doing a really good job. And I said, who are these people that travel? We call them the Dodgers. And I said, what are they? He said, they're generally young people with extremely high IQs who are very good with computers, because you have to be good with computers. So when one of these scammers talks and tries to tell them why it's perfect, they said, no, it doesn't work that way. You know, it's very hard to talk them out of something when they have you. But we're actually going to Fort Knox because I want to see, do we have the gold? Do we still have whatever it is, tons of gold? I hope we do. Wouldn't that be disappointing? Fort Knox. You grow up hearing about Fort Knox. You can't get in. You can't even see it. Nobody sees it. You go there and the place is dry. Would that be terrible? There's another one. Maybe you should go with us to that one. But we're going to go in there pretty soon. They're going to open the doors to Fort Knox. If any governor would like to go with us, well, good. You want to go with us on that one, Ron? That could be good. Could be interesting. Can you imagine if we open it up and there's no gold? Well, I think there will be. For one reason, it's really heavy. You know, you steal or borrow gold, you got to be strong. So it's not like other things. But we're looking at everything. We have the largest deregulation campaign in history. And we are, again, I did more than anybody, but this blows it away. And for one, every time we put in a new regulation, we're not allowed to put it in unless we terminate 10 old regulations. So it's 1 in 10. We did 1 in 7 in my last administration. And the problem is some of them were put back, foolishly put back. There was no reason for them. So if you truly want a turbocharged economy, you have to do that, and you have to get rid of the regulations. I think one of the reasons before COVID, and we did a great job with COVID and it was a hell of a thing for all of us, everybody here. But some countries will actually never recover for what they went through. But we ended up giving back when we turned over the reins. We The stock market was higher than just previous to COVID coming in, which was an amazing achievement. But we were, just prior to that, I would never forget, I was sitting down with two consultants, the two great pollsters. They said, sir, this economy is so good. We're the greatest economy in the history of the world. We were doubling up China. I was also charging China hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, which no president charged them anything, but they were killing us. But we were beating everybody. Everybody said that in 2018, China was going to overtake us as the biggest economy in the world. And by the time I got finished, we were so much bigger than China, and we still are now. But another 4 years like we had just passed, you will have China being much bigger than you. There's no reason. If we have a smart president, there's no way that they should ever be able to catch us. But this pollster said to me, sir, if Abraham Lincoln and George Washington came back from the dead and they ran as president and vice president, they'd never be able to beat you. I said, thank you very much. The next day I go into my office and a group of scientists are sitting there. Sir, would like to tell you there's something very bad happening in China. There's dead bodies all over the place. And that's the first time I heard the word pandemic in a long time. And that's where it started. And you know where they were? All around the Wuhan lab. That's why I was, from day one, I was saying, they had little slits like this. You saw them from the air, from space. And they were just little slits, but they were body bags. They were black body bags all over, so many. And that's where it came from. One other thing, I just before we leave, I think you should do this. For my safety and security and for the good of our nation, you should do it anyway, regardless, even if it costs 10 times more, but it actually costs you just a tiny fraction. If you went to paper ballots and you're voting, and I would hope that every Republican would. So it costs exactly 8% of what the machines cost. These machines, they got something going. They get business. It's amazing. So paper ballots, and paper is very sophisticated today. Paper, it's called watermark. It's impossible to copy, impossible to cheat. It's actually hard to believe that a piece of paper is highly sophisticated. But it's watermark, and it's it's amazing, actually, when you see it. You can't cheat. But if you went to paper ballots and same-day voting, and if you went to voter ID, and also one other thing, you want a proof of citizenship, those four things: proof of citizenship, voter ID, paper ballots, one-day voting. And if you went to 2-day voting or 3-day voting, but some of these states, you had 64 days. You know, California just finished up just a short while ago. They were voting a week and a half ago. They're trying to finish them up. And other states too, they were weeks after the election. I mean, if that were a close election, you'd have to wait for weeks and weeks and weeks. You got finished fast, Brian. Thank you for your help. We did very well in Georgia. It was very nice. But some of these states, if you had a close election, you wouldn't know who won. And then, you know, once that happens, then you really never know who won. But you would save tens of millions of dollars, forgetting about right, wrong, and security, safety, our country, our Constitution, and all of this. Number one, you'd have a much safer election. Number two, everybody, you'd know the results of your election by 10 o'clock. Everybody, it's a beautiful system. It's boxes of 5,000, boom, boom. And you can go and examine each box. It's so simple and so good. I did ask Elon, because he knows more about computers than anybody I know. I said, what do you think of the voting system? He said, computers are not meant for voting. It's just not it's too many transactions taking place too quickly. It's just not, he said, honestly, and I've gone to the best people, the smartest computer minds from MIT, from others. My uncle was a professor for 41 years at MIT and a brilliant guy. And I got to know a lot of the people up there. And they will tell you that the most secure way that you can secure the election, and probably the fastest way, because there can be very little hanky-panky, is paper ballots. Can you believe it? So I hope, Sarah, that certainly the Republican governors, but if you want to save a lot of money, you go to paper ballots. It'll cost you 8% of what the costs are now. And that's based on a good deal for machines. And then when you go through the days and weeks and months of waiting, France had mail-in ballots. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you're going to have fraud, without question. And France had it, and they went back to paper ballots. And I saw their election, and their election was over at 9 o'clock, and their numbers came in at 10:05. And there were no complaints. They had a winner, they had a loser, 39 million votes, and it was done. We're one of the only people that has now mail-in voting, one of the only countries that has mail-in voting. Remember Jimmy Carter when he did a commission, and I think they had Scoop Jackson, they had some, at the time, big senators, and their conclusion was, if you have mail-in voting, you're going to have massive fraud. And we had it in New York with the congressional race. Remember the congressional race? It took them forever to like 6 months later, they declared, who was it, Jerry Nadler or somebody? They declared him the winner, 6 months later. But it was somebody. Oh, no, it was the woman, the congressman. I won't mention her name. But she won, but she didn't win. And it was really very sad to see that whole thing. Democrat, that was a Democrat and a Democrat. That was a primary, but they had the mail-in voting. It's just a disaster. So it's very, very expensive. If you want to save money, if you really believe that the computers work, which they don't, but if you want to save a lot of money, all you have to do is go to paper ballots, and you'll be cutting it down by millions and millions of dollars. So America will take off like a rocket ship. You're going to see things. It's so great for the governors, and Democrat governors are going to have, you're going to get the benefit of this. You're going to be opening up plants, and you're going to be, I hope we have enough people. We're going to and we want people to come into our country, by the way, I do, but they have to come in legally. So we need people in the country, but they have to come in legally. 2 weeks ago, I signed an executive order banning men from playing in women's sports. Many Democrats are fighting me on that. I hope you continue, because you'll never win another race. And it's just crazy. If you look at what happened with the boxing, if you look at what happened with the weightlifting numbers, where a record that hadn't been broken for 19 years got shattered. But, they put up an eighth of an ounce here, an eighth of an ounce there, and it's 218 pounds or whatever, a lot. And hadn't been broken in 19 years. And then guy walks up who transitioned. He transitioned, and he knocked out that record by about 100 pounds. That will be a record not going to be broken again in a long. So we put a ban on it, and to protect women. I mean, the women, if you watch the Olympics, you had two transitioned people that were fighting in the women's boxing. They have women's boxing category. And if you saw that, it was brutal. What happened to the Italian woman was a really good boxer. After one punch, she said, no more. I've never been hit. It was a left. It was not even it was just a left jab. She got hit so hard, she said, I can't do it. They forced her to go out. No, go out again. You'll do it. Goes out again, gets hit again. No, that's it. She didn't want to die. And it's crazy, but the NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it, because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation, and we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens. We're going to protect. So just to end, this administration has been fighting for parents' rights and universal school choice. we want to do something that I think many people in this room want. And even if you don't, I think you do want it, but you might not be able to say it. We want to move the schools back to the states so that Iowa and South Carolina and Georgia and all these states can run your own school system. And you'll do a fantastic job, Kim. You're going to do great. I mean, I use your example because you're so much into the education, done a great job with school choice, and you'll do your school choice. That'll be the easy thing. But we want to get it back, take it away. So just some stats. So at last, it's usually we're 38, 4.7 million people on our Social Security rolls, right? Well, that's a lot of people. I knew one guy was 100. The great Lenny Litwin, he was a builder in Manhattan. He lived to 103. You knew him. He was one of the greatest builders. He was so happy. The reason he lived. He loved building. He'd build a building a year, right? Never had a problem. You knew Lenny Litwin, I would think of it, all right? He was a great guy and got along with everybody. He got along with Democrats, Republicans. Everybody loved Lenny. When he died, it was a bad day for New York, I'll tell you. He was a great guy. But he lived to 103, 104 because he just loved his business. He was designing a new building at 103, and that was the end of it. He didn't quite get the design finished. But you had 3.6 million people aged 110, substantially older than good old Lenny. From 110 to 119, you have 3.6. These are the people on the rolls. Now we're looking to see whether or not they've been paid, because if they've been paid, then you're just using those numbers to take out the money, all the money that's paid to those people. 3.47 million people from the age of 120 to 129. 3.9 million people aged 130 to 139. 3.5 million people aged 140 years old to 149 years old. I think this is the case for Pam. I think I might give you this, Pam, just you can have it. In fact, I will. 1.3 million from age 150. There's 1.3 million people they're saying are alive and receiving Social Security. Now, that's the only thing we're checking. Are they receiving it? Because if they're receiving it, that makes it much worse. If they're not receiving it, that just makes it incompetent. They shouldn't be on the rolls. And the only thing good about this is that when we take all these people off the rolls, and we have tremendous fraud underneath with people that are 80 and 60 and 50 and everything else. But this is really incredible. 1.3 million from 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people are on the rolls of Social Security over the age of 160 years old, including 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229. So we have, think of that, we have 1,039 people who are 220 years old to 229. We have one person at 240 years old. And here's the beauty of them all. We have one person at 360, which is strange because the country is 250. So been there 110 years older than the country. Here, Pam, you better take a look at this. That's much better for you than for me. Now the question is, are they getting paid? Because somebody maybe is getting paid. Yeah, I have a feeling you were. I said, what a convenient thing. This is so nice. We created this department, DOJ, and the kind of numbers are incredible. It could be $500 billion, but it could be $1 trillion. It could be even $1.5 trillion. We're going to find out. I mean, I'm actually going with Elon, and Elon is doing a really good job. And I said, who are these people that travel? We call them the Dojers. And I said, what are they? He said, they're generally young people with extremely high IQs who are very good with computers, because you have to be good with computers. So when one of these scammers talk,